All right, 92, Unit 2, Lesson 1, which is Chapter 8, Section 8.1 in the book. Talks about radicals. So let's do a little radical refresher here. This symbol is the radical sign, and it stands for the positive or principal square root, but is commonly referred to as the square root of a number. And the number is the radicand. Okay, then whatever number is there, that symbol means we're taking the square root of it. And you'll see just a plain square root like that, and sometimes you'll see another number there. But when there's no number there, it's assumed to be a 2. And that's where the square comes in. It's 2 right here. Okay. We'll get into these higher roots other than 2 in the next section. But right now, we're at square roots, which implies that there is a 2 for the index. Okay. You can only take the square root of a positive number. Every positive number has 2 square roots, one positive and one negative, because let's say the square root of 4. Square root of 4, let's see. 2 times 2 is 4. Negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. So both are roots of 4. When you put the square root of 4 in your calculator, you'll get the 2. That is considered the principal square root, or the principal root, and that's what we're referring to when we say square root. But if you put the square root of negative 4 in your calculator, it'll say error, because that is undefined, because negative numbers don't have square roots. When we get to lesson 7 of this unit, we're going to show there is kind of one there, but it's not a real number, it's an imaginary number. So right now, for our purposes, let's consider it undefined. Okay? So what's going to happen is you're going to get numbers, and it's really important to know your perfect squares. So the square root of 1 is 1. The square root of 2, that's not a perfect square. You put that in the calculator, you get a run on decimal, so it's not a perfect square. Square root of 3, not a perfect square. But the square root of 4, put it in your calculator, you get a 2. Okay? Square root of 9, put it in your calculator, you get a 3. Square root of 16, you get a 4. You get the idea. That's for 5, right? This is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 square roots. Okay? So that means these numbers are perfect squares. So when you take the root of them, you get a whole root. Okay? These are the list of perfect squares that come up the most often in the problems in the chapter. Keep them handy until you can recognize them easily. We're going to be square rooting things all the way to the last chapter of this unit. So it's very important that you get to learn these numbers, because when you're factoring things out, you want to be factoring out the perfect square first. In fact, you're going to be wanting to factor out the greatest perfect square that's a factor of the number you're looking at. So it's really important to keep them handy. Keep them handy on a card. If you're a flashcard person, put them on a flashcard, or just keep a list of them handy. Repeatedly write them down until you have them memorized. Because it's going to help you in the long run, okay? So you should be able to look at the square root of 16 and say, that's a 4, because 4 times 4 is 16, okay? The square root of 49 is 7, 10. If you want to show your work, write something like that, okay? This is 13 times 13 is 169, so the square root of 169 is 13, all right? And don't forget 1 is a perfect square. 1 times 1 is 1, okay? Sometimes there is a number out front. When you have, how would you say this? This would be 2 times the square root of 16. So 2 times the square root of 16, which is 4. So that would be 8. Okay? When something's just mashed together and there's no symbol there, it's implied to be a multiplication. So 7 times the square root of 49. The square root of 49 is 7. So 7 times 7 is 49. Okay? Negative 3 times the square root of 100, which is 10. Negative 30. 5 over 13 times the square root of 169 is 13. Which is 5. So the way I wrote it was a little confusing. Remember how you're multiplying fractions, though. You can put the 13 over a 1, and you multiply across the top and get a number, and then divide by 13, which is the same as reducing the 13s away, and you get a 5. Okay? And negative 2 over 3 essentially times 1, which is the square root, which is negative 2 over 3. Okay? And we'll do the explore on the next one.